We've all seen the memes, we've all seen the headlines. Seemingly overnight, everybody's attention turned from the Metaverse to ChatGPT. And this whole boom of interest has got people saying, see, the Metaverse really was just a flash in the pan. Generative AI, that's really where it's at. I've seen headlines talking about how Meta themselves are supposedly divesting from the Metaverse, and that's not their focus anymore during their year of efficiency. If you believe the headlines, there is kind of a case to say, well, the Metaverse was all just hype, and now we've moved on to the next thing. In this video, I'm going to show you why the Metaverse is more than just hype, and how it's actually going to be one of the defining technology revolutions of our generation. Let's go. I'm Amit Iqbal from 5 Ways to Innovate. On this channel, I share insights and stories from my 20+ years leading innovation at some of the world's top companies, including Facebook and Deloitte Digital. One of my last projects at Meta was developing something called the Metaverse Readiness Model. It's effectively a scorecard that lets companies assess how ready they are to execute on the Metaverse across a number of areas like tech infrastructure, people capabilities, and their ability to measure ROI and business impact. I'm quite proud of that piece of work, and it's now been released to the public, so I'll include a link below. During that whole process, a few people asked us, why are you creating something called a readiness model? Shouldn't this be a maturity model? Well, the thing is, if we built something called a maturity model, the truth is most companies on the planet today would be scoring a big fat 0. So rather than focusing on current state maturity, what we wanted to do was give companies a useful way to look at where are we now, and then how do we move forward in a pragmatic way. So through the research process of that project, we identified 5 key use cases for which businesses will be using the Metaverse. The first one we're all probably familiar with, it's called play. Effectively, we're delivering the Metaverse experience through content. We've all interacted with a cereal box with a QR code, you scan it and up pops an animated character, something like that. I was recently at Changi Airport here in Singapore. They have a dinosaur experience in augmented reality. We've seen examples of these floating around for years now. They're kind of interesting, but they're really just the starting point. The second use case we called Explore, which is bringing users across time and geography. So if you've ever tried on virtual lipstick or tried on sunglasses in AR before buying them, you know exactly what we're talking about here. The third use case we call Learn, and this is where it starts to get pretty interesting. What we're talking about here is immersive training, analytics, and research, which lowers the time and the cost of these exercises. Think about any industry where individuals are put in dangerous situations like mining, for example. This is where we can get people trained in a virtual environment rather than sending them right into the front line from day one. We've already started to see some interesting examples for this. For example, Hilton Hotels. They've started to train new staff in a virtual sandbox environment rather than throwing them right away in front of a customer or in the kitchen or whatever the case may be. So they get to practice in a safe environment before actually going and breaking the real customer experience. Another notable example is Accenture. So the consulting firm, they're onboarding their new staff in a virtual reality environment where people can mingle with their colleagues from all around the world. They've built digital twins of some of the key offices, so you can visit some of the global Accenture offices on your first day on the job without ever leaving your bedroom. Okay, the fourth use case is called Create. This is where we can think about an immersive experience for people to do their work. So imagine if you're an architect, right now you design 3D buildings in kind of a 2D environment. Imagine walking through the building that you're designing as you're designing it. Or for individuals who need life-saving surgery who can be operated on by a surgeon on the other side of the world. This is where the applications of the Metaverse start to have real-world impact on the economy and the way we live, play, and work. Now, finally, the fifth use case is something we call Connect. And this is where borders and geography cease to become any kind of a limitation. Imagine if you're a young person growing up in a rural part of Indonesia, for example. Right now, where you were born will largely dictate the education opportunities and the career opportunities you'll ever have access to in your life. Whether you ever get to experience financial inclusion or working in an office or truly being part of the economy, right now is largely dictated by your geography. Now, imagine that same young person is able to apply for and attend the same schools as anyone else in the world. They can work for a workforce which is completely distributed, and therefore we'll cease to see these pockets of talent like Silicon Valley of the past. And therefore what we'll start to see is population density starting to disperse. This is where we'll start to achieve a true meritocracy. Borders and geography cease to become a limitation to the way we live our lives. So at this point, I can hear you asking, if these 5 use cases are so amazing and the metaverse is going to change the world, why then are we seeing this sentiment dive about the metaverse and everybody's attention shifting to other areas like generative AI? So here's the thing, it's actually kind of true. Through the process of researching for the metaverse readiness model, we actually looked at Facebook and Instagram data, and we saw a sentiment graph that basically climbed and climbed and climbed and then suddenly nosedived. But the thing no one is paying attention to is this is completely normal. We've seen this many, many times throughout history. It's called a hype cycle. And of course, this arises because of the first problem with innovation, which is innovation is hard to see. I've spoken in some of my other videos before about examples like back when the telephone was invented, Western Union, who owned all of the telegraph lines, saying the telephone will never be a viable form of communication. US Congress, when automobiles were invented, said they will never replace horse and carriage. We've seen this time and time again throughout history. Even industry experts fail to see true innovation as it's happening right in front of them. One of my slightly more recent favorite examples is, of course, Amazon Web Services and the rise of cloud computing. So Amazon CEO Andy Jassy at the time talked about AWS, and this is what he said. First, they said no one will use it. Then maybe only startups will use it, but they won't use it for anything real. Then it was enterprise will never use it. Then enterprise will never use it for anything mission critical. Well, companies voted with their workloads, and now competitors are 6 or 7 years late. So then, think of all of the companies who poo-pooed cloud computing and said, this is just a fad, we don't need to invest in it. And now they've spent the last 10 years playing catch-up, investing billions of dollars and loads of resources just trying to catch up to their competitors. This is no doubt exactly what we're going to see with the metaverse. And I just hope that some companies have learnt some of these lessons from the past, and they understand that investing small, investing early, and taking small steps now will mean that they don't need to rush and play catch-up over the next 10 years. Now, if I haven't made my case yet, finally I have one last point. As I always like to say, follow the money. So everyone is sitting around with bated breath, waiting for Apple to drop their mixed reality device. But in the meantime, Microsoft and Meta have both been throwing tens of billions of dollars trying to win the enterprise metaverse race. Both of these companies intimately understand whoever wins the enterprise metaverse game is going to end up being the operating system for the metaverse, and that's the holy grail for the next generation of technology. For more on that specific point, check out my video on the 5 metaverse myths. Now look, there is absolutely no doubt that over the coming months, we're going to continue to hear more and more about ChatGPT, about generative AI, and how that's the next wave of everything, and therefore the metaverse is nothing. You're going to see a lot of these stories floating around. But if the thought ever enters your mind that this shift in attention means that the metaverse really was just a flash in the pan and won't be consequential, remind yourself that silence doesn't mean that something has gone away. It might just be that it's in the process of becoming something that we can't live without. After all, when was the last time you heard Trevor Noah making a joke about cloud computing? Thank you so much for watching the video all the way to the end. If you'd like to support the channel, please be sure to like and subscribe. If you like our content, check out our other videos and visit us at 5waystoinnovate.com to find out more about our mission to help 1,000 corporates reinvent themselves in order to build the business of tomorrow. I'm Amir Iqbal. Stay tuned and I'll see you soon.